Hello, I've got a 1985 Topps rack pack that we're going to open today. Uh, this is the rookie cards of Dwight Gooden, Brett Saberhagen, and Mark McGuire. Those were the big chase cards back in the day. I remember opening this set and getting nearly complete on it. I've lost a few of the cards over the years, so I thought I would open it up and see if I got anything I was missing. Oh, also Kirby Puckett's in this set as well. So let's see who we got. On the top, we have the insert card of Mike Schmidt, Johnny Ray of the Pirates, and Tom Herr of the Cardinals on the back. On the reverse, we have Al Jones, Randy Johnson, not that Randy Johnson, he didn't come along for a while, and then Phil Bradley of the Mariners. There's the Randy Johnson and the Al Jones. So we will open these up. They came from Larry Frisch Cards of Stevens Point, Wisconsin. They were delivered in immaculate condition. Very well packaged. And we'll see what we get. Maybe slice this open a bit more. First thing to note here is that the card's peeled a little bit. This insert of Schmidt is a glossy, and it is significantly less glossy now, but that's part of it. So here we go with the cards. First card is Henry Cotto, reserve outfielder for the Chicago Cubs. Oh, another rookie. I forgot he was in this set. Eric the Red, Eric Davis. One of the most prolific threats with power and base stealing. Before he got injured in the 1990 World Series, he was on a Hall of Fame trajectory. And as it is, he owns a World Series ring with the 1990 Reds. So I'm going to set that off to the side. Another Hall of Famer, Tony La Russa, manager of the White Sox in his first stint there before he was let go and went to Oakland. Mark Hill, third string catcher for the White Sox. I skipped one. Another Hall of Famer, an all-star card of Gary Carter. Steve Farr of the Cleveland Indians, relief pitcher. The Hackman, Jeff Leonard of the Giants. A college Hall of Famer, Rod Dedeaux of UCLA, in his role as coach of the 1984 United States Olympic team. Another Hall of Famer, Tony Gwynn, All-Star of the San Diego Padres, coming off a championship season where they won the National League pennant. Renee Latchman, manager of the Brewers. Jerry Narron, utility man for the Angels. Another Hall of Famer, Ozzie Smith of the Cardinals, and that looks pretty well centered. It's got a little nip on the corner here. But these were cards produced in the 80s. They were kids' toys, not investment vehicles, the way it should be. Joe Cowley of the Yankees. Danny Ozark of the Giants. We're running into some managers here. Jim Fry, the National League champion Chicago Cubs. 1980 pennant winner with the Kansas City Royals. And also a part of the Baltimore Orioles, great teams in the late 60s and early 70s. And a man that someday may make the Hall of Fame from Terre Haute, Indiana, Tommy John. Gerstmeyer High School. And I only know that because I grew up near Terre Haute. But Tommy John has over 280 wins and may someday sneak into the Hall of Fame. And Al Jones, a pitcher for the White Sox. And that concludes the first set. So we got 1, 2, 3 Hall of Famers and one of the key rookies to the set. And Eric Davis. And you can see on Davis's cheek there's a little fisheye. But all in all, a great pack. So let's open the second one. And let's see if this sticks to the top or whether it was just the glossy that did. It appears we're in good shape here. Here we are. Okay, we'll start out with second baseman Johnny Ray of the Pittsburgh Pirates and their taxi cab uniforms. A Hall of Famer. They had a series insert this year. It wasn't an insert, it was part of the main base set. #1 draft picks through the years, and this is Harold Baines of the White Sox, who was drafted #1 overall in 1977 and went on to a Hall of Fame career for several teams. He's noted for having his number retired by the Sox after they traded him, so he was still an active player for a number of years with his number retired by his former team. So we'll put him there. Clay Christensen of the Yankees. Benny Ayala of the Orioles. Dickie Knowles of the Texas Rangers, a pitcher who was once traded for himself. The Cubs sent him to the Tigers for a player to be named later. And after the season, the player to be named later was Dickie Knowles. So he has the distinction of being one of very few people that was ever traded for himself. Brian Clark, pitcher for the Blue Jays. There we go. Kirby Puckett. Hall of Fame rookie card for the Minnesota Twins. I will leave it to others to judge the centering. It looks a skosh off left to right for me. The right side appears to be a little bit bigger. This will sit in a box and never get graded, so it really doesn't matter. And then here's the back of the card, card 536. Former Bradley Brave from Bradley University in Peoria, Illinois. First round draft pick of the Twins in January of 1982. So that's a good one. Greg Pryor, utility infielder for the Kansas City Royals. Here's another base card insert that was put in that year. Fathers and sons, Gus Bell and Buddy Bell. Buddy Bell, a third baseman for the Rangers. Gus Bell of the Cincinnati Reds. That card's from 1961 when the Reds won the National League pennant and played the Yankees in the World Series. And then Buddy Bell went on to have children of his own playing in the major leagues. So, good card there. Another manager card, Jim Fanning of the Montreal Expos. Atlee Hammaker, who gave up a Grand Slam homer to Fred Lind in the 1983 All-Star Game. at Comiskey Park. It was the first ever Grand Slam in All-Star history and the 50th anniversary game. A great fielding infielder for the Braves. He was on their 1982 division champion team. Rafael Ramirez. Bill Swaggerty of the Baltimore Orioles. Another father and son card. Bob Kennedy of the Indians from the 1954 top set, along with his son Terry. Catcher for the Padres. Interesting to note that in 1954, Bob Kennedy was on the American League champions with Cleveland. And 30 years later, Terry was on the National League champions as a catcher with San Diego as they faced Detroit in the World Series. 2 cards to go. We know the last one. This one is Bob Shirley, pitcher for the New York Yankees, and utility infielder Randy Johnson of the Atlanta Braves. So we've got 1 to go. And I would say, as far as getting star cards and key cards from the set, we're doing very well. Eric Davis and Kirby Puckett are certainly 2 of the key cards for any 85 Topps collector. So we're ahead of the game there. Tommy Herr of the St. Louis Cardinals. In the 1985 season, when this card was issued, Herr had fewer than 10 home runs for the season and drove in more than 100 runs. A lot of that was due with the fact that he had Vince Coleman and Ozzie Smith batting ahead of him, and they were always on base that year. Herr was a contact hitter, a good hitter, and put the ball in play and got a lot of RBIs as a result. I don't think anyone since has got 100 or more RBIs in a season with fewer than 10 home runs. So that's Tommy Herr of the Cardinals, who was an all-star that season. Dan Billardello of the Reds, who had the unfortunate opportunity to break into the major leagues right as Johnny Bench was retiring, so he wasn't the primary backup to Bench down the stretch. But you can see here on the back of his card that he was on the Reds in 83 as Bench was retiring. He got a good shot at it, but only hit .238 with very limited power. Not what the Reds fans were expecting after Bench left. Soon after this, Joe Oliver appeared on the scene in the late 80s, and Joe was the regular catcher for the Reds when they won the World Series in '90. Miguel Delaney, well-traveled outfielder here with Montreal. Terry Francona. This is an interesting card. Terry was a utility player for Montreal that season. He's better known as a manager, champion with the Boston Red Sox. And we're going to put him in the good pile because there is a very strong chance that Terry Francona will someday be a Hall of Famer. Good player somewhat forgotten, Jerry Mumphrey, outfielder for the Astros. He was a good, strong left-handed batter. Always keep you in a game. If you had 9 Jerry Mumphreys on your team, you'd be doing pretty good. A lot of people don't remember him, but Mumphrey was a good hitter for a long time. Maybe not as good as this guy, Gary Carter. First ballot Hall of Famer. Much of his career took place in Montreal. This is really the last card that features him in an Expos uniform before he returned to finish his career out in the 90s. But Carter's best years were really in Montreal, and not a lot of people in America knew that because the Expos underperformed and there wasn't ESPN and MLB Network, and you just didn't get to see him play. But when he came to the Mets in the 80s and they won the World Series, everyone knew who Carter was. Hall of Famer there. Ron Hodges of the Mets, a backup catcher after Carter came over. Terry Poole, another good hitter for the Astros. The Astros had really good teams back then. They went on to win the division in '86, and they did it with pitching, and they had a huge outfield, and Terry Poole was one of the people that had to patrol it. You had to be quick in the outfield to play in the Astrodome. It was just so big and balls didn't fly over the fence there. So an outfield was really, really necessary. Poole did an excellent job there, along with guys like Cesar Cedeno and Jose Cruz and Enos Cabell, guys throughout the years that played the outfield at the Astrodome. Ned Yost, backup catcher here for the Texas Rangers, maybe better known as the manager of the 2015 World Series champion Kansas City Royals. My son would love this card. He's a big Royals fan. So that's a good one to have. Hall of Famer, Eddie Murray. 3,000 plus hits, 500 plus home runs. There was nothing he really couldn't do with the bat. Most known for his time with the Orioles, also played in Cleveland with the Indians in some World Series and playoff teams, and also was part of the Los Angeles Dodger organization for a while. But Eddie Murray will be forever known, and rightly so, as a Hall of Famer from the Baltimore Orioles. Willie Randolph, second baseman for the Yankees. Willie is not in the Hall of Fame, though many who played with him and watched him every day make arguments that he should be. Statistically, he's clearly not a Hall of Famer, but everyone that played with him will swear up and down that the incidental stuff he brought to the table, the behind-the-scenes stuff, made him invaluable to the success of the Yankees World Series teams in the 70s and really into the early 80s. By 85, the Yankees were consistently being beaten by Baltimore and Toronto in the standings. They had a really good team this year in 85. They had Mattingly and Randolph and Henderson and Winfield, but they just couldn't get it over the top. The pitching wasn't there like it had been in years before, and the division had really caught up to the Yankees. Roy Howell, third baseman for the Milwaukee Brewers, wearing the famous dog paw uniform hat. Frank Viola of the Minnesota Twins. He was kind of unknown at this point. He had broken in a couple years earlier with Minnesota, and the Twins weren't that good, so he was kind of pitching in obscurity. But that all changed in 1987 when the Twins made the World Series, and Frank Viola was one of the stars of the team. It was really Frank Viola, Burt Blyleven, and not a lot else back in those days. But they got it done, and Frank was a big part of the World Series winners for the Twins in 1987 and again in 1991. And the guy he was throwing to, Tim Laudner. Laudner was the catcher for that 87 World Series team. Important part of that club. And you can't talk about World Series in the 80s without mentioning Bill Buckner. A lot of people forget Buckner started his career in Los Angeles, where he was a speedy outfielder before hurting his legs. Buckner was in left field when Hank Aaron hit his home run off Al Downing in 1974. He went up, tried to climb the wall to catch it. Obviously he didn't. But Buckner was an all-star with the Dodgers. He played outfield for them. He was traded to the Cubs in the mid-70s for Rick Monday, when the Cubs had Monday, You may remember Monday rescuing the flag at Dodger Stadium in Los Angeles. And not too long after that, the Dodgers made a trade to get Monday over to their team in exchange for Buckner. Buckner was the best player on several miserable Cub teams in the late 70s and early 80s. And just when the team was getting good in 1984, in May of that year, when the Cubs were in first place, they had too many outfielders and needed a place for Leon Durham to get in the lineup consistently, as well as Keith Moreland, Mel Hall, and Gary Matthews and Bob Dernier. So Buckner was kind of the odd man out. He was the older guy. Durham had speed and power, where Buckner, his speed was gone by that point. So they traded him to Boston for Dennis Eckersley, who slotted in as the Cubs' third starter behind Steve Trout and then later Rick Sutcliffe. The Cubs really needed the pitching by that point. This was before they had traded. I think it was about the same time they traded for Sutcliffe. So the Cubs had the hitting and needed the pitching to balance it off. So Buckner went to Boston, and that's where he appeared in the '86 World Series. Eckersley had a couple good years in Chicago before flaming out famously, being traded to Oakland for next to nothing and then rediscovering himself as a reliever. So a lot about Bill Buckner there. He had a long career in the major leagues. He's wrongly remembered as the guy that let the ball go through his legs in Game 6 to lose the game for the Red Sox. We all know that story. But Buckner did a lot of amazing things on a baseball field and should be remembered. And then finally, Phil Bradley of the Seattle Mariners, who goes down as the first person ever to hit a home run in a night game at Wrigley Field on 8/8/88. He took the first pitch he saw and knocked it into the street, which says something about the Cubs of the 80s. And if you were there watching them, you can figure that out from there. So that was a lot of fun. Let's recap the hits we got. They aren't really hits, they're all base cards, but that's what the kids say nowadays, so we'll call them that. Here's Eddie Murray of the Orioles. Gary Carter at catcher. We've got Terry Francona, second generation major leaguer, Montreal. Probably, if you're looking at dollars and cents, the most valuable card that we took out of this was Kirby Puckett. Harold Baines, the insert card from the White Sox. Eric the Red, Eric Davis. Tony La Russa of the White Sox. Gary Carter of the Expos. And Tony Gwynn All-Star card for the Padres. So that's a 1985 Topps Rack Pack. Hope you enjoyed watching it. I enjoyed making it and reminiscing about the players from my youth. Have a great day. Thanks.